Welcome back to Breakthrough, where we talk about business, strategy, execution, and results. And we do it through a lot of topics that can help your business excel in kind of this new digital age. Today, we're going to be talking about some very unique topics, so stay tuned right here. Of course, PaulBarronGroup.com is our sponsor today. So my website and my speaking and consulting can get you some great insights, maybe for your event or for your business. If you're looking to try to jump the shark in digital, that's a great place to go. So just visit PaulBarronGroup.com/contact right here on the screen behind me. You can hit that and just send me a note if you've got something cool that's in mind, or maybe you're up against a challenge you need to learn about from a digital aspect. That's where I come in and I can help you out. So let's get right to it. Today we're going to be talking about building your business on social in 2020. And if you think about this, 2020 versus the beginning of the era of social media that happened and occurred in 2006, 2007, literally over a decade ago, we've really started to see a shakeout of platforms, and a lot of platforms that are starting to excel, I would say 3 to 5 years ago, have started to slow now. And really, when you look at social, this is the thing that I get most of all. People always asking, what are the best platforms to use? Give me the number one or the number two I should be doing. Those are things that really you as a business have to decide. There's a lot of different variables in the type of content and even the type of business that you're into as to which platforms might work for you. And today we're going to find those things out. So we're going to really get into it on breaking down some of those elements. So first thing, influencers have been the guiding force of conversation over the past 5 years. This is kind of the thing I call the rise of the influencers. This is the era in which influencers started to essentially transcend advertising by their followers, and through whether it was through organic or paid reach that they were going into, building these massive audiences and then doing product placement was really kind of the model that is happening. The issue is that if you're building a business that is based on a specific platform and just that platform, you're already behind the 8 ball, because eventually that platform is going to fail and go away. All businesses fail at some point or they sell. It's just a matter of time. In social, this is going to be happening in a much faster rate of speed. So we'll be talking about this. Now let's go back to 2016, just 3 short years ago, and talk about what you see on screen right now, and that is what controlled the conversation in kind of the B2B, the professional crowd out there. Social media use was at 47%. So about half the people in business in 2016 were using social as one of their primary tools of education and content information. Mobile streaming penetration, very low at only 9% back in 2016. Web use, of course, way high, 72%. Email use even higher, 91%. High bandwidth mobile only existed on about 21% of devices at that time, meaning you could really stream effectively just 4 short years ago, about 21%. And then news app usage in 2016 was almost non-existent. When I say news apps, places like Apple News and Google News really were not completely vetted out and had very, very low, if any, adoption in terms of critical mass. So this, of course, started to change dramatically in 2016. Remember, 2016's 10 years after Facebook and Twitter launched at South by Southwest. I don't remember when Twitter and Foursquare, of course, it has now no longer a platform, but instead a location services company. So really kind of changing the game. So let's look at this year, 2019, and kind of what's controlling the conversation today. Social media use, about flatline, 51%. Mobile streaming has just literally taken off, I think, the industry. And if you follow the news at all, you probably already know this with all these social streaming platforms that are moving so quickly to basically appease the demand and the appetite from today's modern consumer, and most of all, today's mobile consumer, which we'll talk about a bit as well. Web use, 68%, slowing a little bit because apps and streaming, even though web is still a part of it, people are using video, podcasts, and other vehicles that didn't exist really at critical mass 5 years ago as their vehicle for content consumption and education. Email still very high at 72%. High bandwidth mobile now almost at critical mass. Literally anybody has a smartphone. It's a high bandwidth smartphone, meaning you can stream, consume media at a ridiculous speed rate. Obviously, we're edging toward 5G. That's going to change the game again. And then news apps, now 39, almost 40% of the population have used or are using news apps to get content in their inboxes. This is a big shift from 2016. It's a huge move in just a very short period of time. 2020, which is the next slide we're going to talk about here, this is where I think we are in an era now that is going to be moving into, and remember this term, the decade of disruption. And that is something that's going to happen in the next 10 years, meaning 2020 to 2030. We are going to see another major shift in how basically society interacts with both technology, socioeconomic, political, food, you name it, all of that's going to be impacted in the next decade. Look at these numbers though, 67% will not be reading print. So magazines, newspapers, those types of physical artifacts are essentially going away. They are, and I think this has kind of been on the cusp of being a real thing for a few years, but in 2020, I think we are really going to hit critical mass in the other direction. Say 83% will be using mobile over desktop. That's another big shift. People using their phones more so than their desktops or laptops, which I think is why you're seeing more and more focus on the phone products coming from the big players like Android, Pixel, and Google, and of course, Apple. So what I'm talking about is 63% of key decision makers are under the age of 40. This is a big point because what's happened is the ages between 30 and 35 are now maturing into management roles and decision-making roles. And guess what? They are not the same breed when it comes to B2B marketing, B2B consumption as guys like me. They are a shift for most of what's happening in the B2B space, and biggest of all is the way that they consume content has completely changed. So video consumption is up, highest ever at 87%. Podcast use is on the rise. I cannot stress to you how big audio is going to be in this next decade. Consumption speed and the ability to consume the amount of content that's out there to help your business or help you in your job is growing at an exponential rate. And the only way to do that, I'm not saying video is dead. Video is still a very big part of our daily life. But when you are driving or in a situation, maybe at work, or people are doing other tasks, like in a kitchen for a chef or someone that's a restaurant operator, audio is going to be the key element of how content is consumed from an education or an informational aspect, even if they're just listening to something that's entertaining, from comedy all the way up to a political podcast. This is going to be a big deal, and it's not going to do anything but rise. I think what we're going to see is literally, if you think about where we were 25 years ago, everybody in America received a newspaper. 95% of the population that had anything to do with society was getting a newspaper on their front step 25 years ago. I think where we're going to see that in this next era is everybody will be getting a podcast 3 to 5 times per week in their mobile phone. And that's going to be a huge difference in which the way that they consume content. 27% drop in Facebook use. This is another big area for B2B professionals. I'm not saying Facebook is dead. What I am saying is that we are seeing some shifts. That's why you're also seeing companies like Facebook basically buy up companies like Instagram. They are moving the audience and moving their services to other platforms. 69% of independents and chefs are seeking local. This is a big deal because it means that we're starting to see how local businesses may come back into the game on being able to provide localized content. That's a big problem in the news business because news has pretty much been stripped away from the local scene. That may play out in the next decade. And then 53% are using on-demand platforms in education like Amazon, YouTube, Netflix. So these are big moves for 2020. Let's talk about companies that actually have applied these changes to what they were trying to do to be able to make money. So here's a great example, and that is Beyond Meat. If you have not followed this company from their IPO to where they are now, they continued to rise. Obviously, it's still a question as to whether or not plant-based is a thing, and or if this company is the one that's going to take plant-based to the next level. That's still unknown. What I do know is that when you look at the data and what Beyond Meat did leading up to their IPO, they were going after control of conversation, and that's what we're talking about, is control of conversation. Where are people getting information? Where are they getting this kind of data so that they can understand what Beyond Meat is about? So they targeted influencers, in this particular case, chefs and brands. They increased their conversation 422% year over year. Remember, they just went public this year in 2019. So this would have been 17 and 18, 422% increase in their conversation. And they controlled that. Their brand sentiment went up 8.7% or 8.7 points, which is very hard to do in our sentiment analysis to move that much in a single year. And they're leading the plant-based protein company category by Q1 of 2019. So essentially what they did is they created enough hype and enough conversation around their business using all these tactics to enable that company to basically fly off the gate in their IPO and make that company, the type of value that it is today. This is another thing. They don't really have a public competitor that's, like Impossible Foods isn't there. There are a few other bigger companies that compete with them, but only by product level, meaning, someone like a Morningstar who's competing with them on a handful of products, where Beyond Meat is really controlling the context as a company because they are all plant-based. And it'll be interesting to see how they continue to ride the wave around this. Again, analyzing these 20 social digital platforms, this is kind of where we go when we are looking at all this data. And this has kind of changed up a little bit when you look at what we used to look at almost 5 years ago. Some of those platforms just aren't there anymore. As I mentioned earlier, Foursquare just gone. But these are pretty much the new cornerstones of what is happening in the social space. So if your company is not already looking at those type of platforms, obviously you're dead already, if that's the case. Let's talk about 2019 and 2020 professional media destinations. And this is everything from business owner chains, non-traditional, meaning people that aren't like a retail business, maybe a true B2B application, or a college and university. These are some different elements that you're going to see between print, web, social, news apps, and then on-demand or OTT. And pretty much, as you can see, there's a lot of movement. Print is down 4.8, nothing new. Web is up 2.8. Social's up 8.3%. And then we have news apps, which are up 16% in terms of consumption. That's great for if that's how you're getting your content out there. And then on-demand and OTT is flying off the shelf at 34.8% up. And this is going to be happening as we roll into 2020. Here's your top platforms by demographic. I know not all the platforms are on here. This is just a few of them. But the 18 to 24 crowd, you can kind of see they float around YouTube and Instagram. 25 to 34, still YouTube and Instagram. But podcasts make a play there. And then you get into 35 to 45, podcast, on demand, and YouTube starts to move into position. And then you get into the 45 to 55 crowd, and podcast dominates, with Instagram actually showing a little bit of a bump right there. And then the 55 plus, Facebook comes back to life, and podcasts are back in the game along with YouTube. And then coming in last at 9.2% is Instagram. So you can kind of see that the evolution of age also kind of changes the dynamic in which platforms that you're going. So if you're a business that's targeting specific types of consumers or businesses, then you have to make sure that your target is clear to the platform that you're trying to move to and what your message is. So the message cannot be the same over here on Facebook as it might be over here on Instagram. And that's the thing that you have to really focus on as a business. And if your message isn't the same, and maybe there's just not a product over there on Instagram for you, then maybe Instagram isn't the platform for you, maybe it is Facebook. And there's nothing wrong with that. This isn't going to be a video that's a fix-all for you. It's helping you understand how to navigate and get moving in the right direction. So now these trends can help you in understanding what platforms are moving in to the next level. So if you're looking for strategy, execution, or results, make sure and visit my website, which is paulbarrongroup.com. And we'll be right back, and we're going to be talking about some tips and strategy to actually make you money on the new social media platforms for 2020. Stick around right here. Has your business hit a wall? Is your competition eating your lunch? I've been building breakthrough brands for over 20 years with experience right from the trenches. We deliver strategy, execution, and follow-through results in branding, technology, operations, marketing, and leadership. Become the breakthrough brand you should be. Contact me now at paulbarrongroup.com. All right, so welcome back to Breakthrough, and today we are getting back into the hunt, and we're going to do it by hunting down the best social media platforms for 2020. No, social media is not dead. It was on its last leg, maybe a heartbeat away, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg and his fakers over at Facebook. But no, not yet. It is not going to die because there is a salvation, baby. And I'm going to tell you who they are. So let's get into it. You want to make money on social media. Everybody wants to make money. If you listen to Gary Vee, it's like, dude, I want to make some money. I need some money now. But Gary Vee says, if you listen to Grandfather V, he says, hey, you got to be able to look at the long game. So we're going to talk about what the long game is. Now, when did you start Twitter? I'm talking to you right there. When did you start Twitter? If you started Twitter less than 5 years ago, then you haven't given Twitter a chance because it takes a long time to develop an audience and even longer to build confidence in what you're trying to do. But in most cases, it's the reputation that's going to matter most. So we're going to talk about three things here. 3 is the organic reach quest. Everybody wants this. They want the likes, the hearts. They want all this stuff. I want to do this, this, and this. I need all that, positive feedback from almost instantaneous. We're going to talk about that and what platforms you can get it from. Distributed content strategy. How do you move a piece of content like what we're doing right here on Breakthrough? How do you move it through the lanes? Because you got to snake out here. You're going to roll it out here. Maybe it's a GIF or a GIF over here. And that's another one. What is it? GIF or GIF? Put it in the comments below. We'll find out. Last is the new platform strategy. And this is where we're going to be talking about the things you should be getting ready for. And I'll guarantee you, you're not thinking about these 2 platforms that we'll talk about here at the end of the video. All right, so organic reach has been on fire on Instagram. If you look at some of these examples of how chefs are using Instagram to grow organic reach, this is a perfect example. So here's Mark Voltaggio, who is a famous chef in New York, does a great job. He's looking at it here with localized outreach and advocacy. That's his message. That's his story. That's the game he's playing to get his brand, both for his restaurants, but himself as a chef, out onto the Insta. And then, of course, you have Steph Izard here in Chicago, who's making it a different way. They're going the route of event marketing collaborations. So essentially, they're locking in on events, bringing in users and potential guests of their restaurants in through collaborations with events. So this is another great way to engage in organic reach. And then here is my favorite, and that's product testing. So this is right here, Chef Adrian Calvo. By the way, if you're not listening to Chef AF, I want you to stop everything right now, pause the YouTube video, jump over on your iPhone, and if you're using those crappy Androids out there, I want you to, what is it do you even get a podcast on? But if you get it, you're gonna jump over to the podcast app right now and subscribe to Chef AF because this chick right here has got it going on. And she's the host. Now, Chef Adrian does something very unique. Here, Chef Adrian is using her sexy visual appeal right here of this beautiful food to look at product testing. So she's psyching you out. thinking that you're just looking at pretty food, but instead she's actually getting feedback real time to understand if that should go on tonight's menu. Those are great tips if you're a restaurant operator. This can also work in B2B applications of a lot of different types. If you need to know how to make that work, make sure and hit the link below, because all you have to do is visit paulbarrongroup.com, and that will be the place where we can help you do things like that. Now, with all that great stuff said, and we did say a lot of good stuff about Instagram, what happens now is a bad thing. Instagram's organic reach is starting to fall. Why, I tell you? Because of Mark Zuckerberg. That's why. He has got his things in that beautiful app called Instagram, and he is starting to rake out that money, baby. It's coming out now in bags. I need a big bag of gold juice right here. That's how much Instagram is flowing back to Facebook now, which means, look at these data points right here. You got one going this way, and you got one going the other way. This doesn't work. This does not work. The reasons are simple. Marketing at scale. So all you Instagram famous that are out there, what was organic reach for the Instagram influencer will now have to be paid reach. I know you're gonna have to pay for likes. You're gonna have to pay for views. That's just the way it works on social. Once that the platform has reached a point where organic distribution does not outweigh paid distribution. And that's what is happening when you look at Q3 18, Q4 18, Q1 19, Q2 19, and 3 19. Here's the numbers. It is going in the opposite direction, where paid is starting to outpace the organic element. So understand your influencer. It's not necessarily the one you think it is. This is really going to change up a lot on the Instagram platform. I don't know that Instagram is over. There are those out there that are saying already and starting to jump ship, but I think Instagram is definitely in a different place. But I'm not getting off Instagram. I will still continue to use it. I believe that the platform is gonna work. I'm still very sketchy on Facebook. I'm still a platform lover of Twitter, just because I'm a 10-year plus veteran on Twitter, and I believe that it is a great place for accelerating content. But you need to create more content at speed now to be able to accelerate organic reach. So what I mean by that is, what used to be an influencer would put together a great big production. They're building, whether it's a video or as something that they've planned it out, they've shot, they've got 15 different camera angles, they've got audio and sound, and all those things are happening to create one great clip. And that used to be the game in which it went out and they got plenty of organic reach. Now, that is not happening. So what's going to have to happen for these influencers is they are going to have to create content at scale. That means a lot of content, a lot of message, and this is where it's going to get complicated, because only brands can do that. So again, the game starts to flip. It used to be the influencers in control of this. Now the brands potentially could take back control, because it's a pay to play, baby. It's pay to play. Now, the Instagram famous did not pay to play. They were using the organic reach to grow these massive audiences. And now those audiences will start to shrink. Why do you think Logan Paul launched his own podcast? It's every day. It's every day. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's going to change. So let's continue on. Number one, back to, and still on number one tip, more content and library creation. You've got to create variations of your content for different platforms, depending on your business. Again, what kind of platform are you going to use for the content type you are? If you're a real estate agent over here, YouTube's your number. If you are a fashion brand or a local, maybe you're a local store that does something unique, Instagram's your play. And if you are something that's very unique from an entertainment standpoint, I would care to say TikTok would be the game. for you. Now, there is some differences in TikTok, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Consumption increases is going to base on repurpose of your content. So again, you're going to have to learn how to scale content and use it in various ways and repurposing it where it does not look like rerun, but looks like fresh made dough. The dough that's money dough out to you. So let's get going. We're going to go to tip number 2, and that is distributed content strategy. Now, I want you to look at these data points right here. These are on a site called Convince and Convert. 70% of Americans have heard of podcasts. 70%. And 51% of Americans 12 or older have listened to a podcast. That's half the country on something that wasn't even alive 3 years ago. I remember when podcasts started in the mid-2000s, and it was crickets on the podcast plan. I was there. In 2007, 8, we started a podcast. We thought we were going to take over the world. It was shit. I'm telling you, it was so bad. Not the audio. The audio was pretty good. But the podcast strategy was terrible, and we failed miserably. Now, why are podcasts all of a sudden coming to fruition? It goes back to the point that I talked about in another video, and that is that data consumption is no longer an issue. So number one, the platforms are now so massive, and the player context is even more available. So what's happened is all these apps and phones have essentially enabled this type of content to now become a thing. And of course, when you look at something like what we're doing over here at Foodable, we are blanketing podcasts. Just look at the podcast array, and we still have more shows coming. This isn't just 1 or 2, like some of those lames that are out there in the food service space. You know who I'm talking about right now. I'm looking at you, yeah. You know who I'm talking about. No, that's because you've got to put out this kind of content, this kind of context, that kind of information, because the education process is massive. And if you aren't dialing in to that massive need, because it is accelerating at a pace, you have no idea where you're going to be in 2 years. Podcasts are going to be a big one. Video is going to continue to be a distribution point. We are continuing to work on trying to figure out the best strategy for video, because there's so much change happening right now. YouTube's over here, you got your players over here, you've got your on-demand and OTT over here, and then those are exploding. It's just going to get more convoluted. So betting the right horse in the next few years is going to be more important than ever. And let's talk about betting the right horses. All right, so new strategy platform. This is your number 3. Build on reputation. So let's look at, grandfather Gary V over here. I'm with you there, Gary. It's about the same place. But Gary is not a TikTok star, okay? He's a speaker and a consultant for digital media. Why is he on TikTok? He's on TikTok because he is looking at the whole play toward the long game in being able to get the brand of what VaynerMedia is doing. And TikTok, he believes, is one of the platforms that's going to be outshining the rest. I happen to agree with him. I'm looking at, and have been looking at, TikTok for a while, much in a voyeuristic way, just trying to figure out how people are using it. If you're a business, these are the tips for you if you are looking at trying to prep your business to get into this audience. And the first thing you need to do, obviously start the TikTok account. Next up is I want you to just sit back and watch some of the companies or people in your area, because there's a few on there on almost every area. See what they're doing, and then step back again. Go ahead and follow a few people, consume content, do it again, follow some more, consume more content. Spend at least 30 days, a couple hours a day. That's right, a couple hours a day in understanding the platform and how it's being utilized, because there's some very important things on TikTok that we'll talk about and why it works, and it's kind of interesting. But what I want you to do is test the new platform and be prepared to spend years, that's right, I said years, on the platform. And the number one thing is you have to be willing to lose it all. So you're a business owner out there right here. You already are in this game. You're willing to lose it all every day. That's the kind of risk that business owners take. If you run a restaurant, if you run a business in a localized, if you're in a bar, an entertainment, a hotel, it doesn't matter. There's a massive risk for you. So platforms, this is one of the last things you have to worry about. But getting onto a platform and being able to move it to the next level, you've got to be ready to lose it every day. Best platforms for B2B, if you're business to business, YouTube is a rising consumption under the age of 40. Remember, we talked about that earlier. Decision makers are coming onto YouTube in droves, and this is where they're getting their content. It's where they're consuming their how-to videos. They're getting reviews on products. All of that's happening over on YouTube. Instagram and Twitter, still very viable, I think, through 2021. All bets are off once we hit 2021. I'm not sure where the platforms are going to lie after next year, because we are going to see a major shakeup. Obviously, with the political scenario that could be playing out here in America, that could reshape our social media landscape, especially if Facebook gets in another turmoil with how the whole political race starts to play out. LinkedIn, this is the other dark horse or the sleeper, and that is its rising usage. Remember, we're talking about that emerging business professional, the under 40 crowd. The emerging business professional is now starting to actually utilize LinkedIn in ways that I think we as business owners weren't really prepared for. You've got to be able to accelerate your content and your distribution on LinkedIn, whether it's through video, podcasts, articles, writing, whatever it is that you do, this is a great platform to move. As you can see, Facebook is way down on the bottom. It's just one of those things. I'm just not sure Facebook is a B2B product. We still play in it. It's not over yet for the big blue, but I just don't know if it's going to be there much longer as a viable product, unless you get into Facebook groups. I do think Facebook groups could be but it's a lot of work. You have to be willing to really dedicate it to it. And it's very niche oriented, which is another factor, which could work for your business if you're very niche oriented. Much like Foodable, we're a niche-oriented media company, but as you expand beyond that, it starts to really, because at that point you're really just paying for reach on Facebook. And then let's talk about TikTok. They are the rising star, I believe. Everybody always asks me, what about Snapchat? Snapchat is a great product. I do think they'll be around. It's just not necessarily one of the platforms that we've looked at and said this could be the 2020 winners. So we'll see. So how do you start? Let's go into that, kind of this last tip. Mainly, you have to really understand your story. And that means if you have a story as a business, and I've talked about this a lot, is that every business has one, but you have to understand how that story applies to your customer. And if you don't, then you've got to figure that out quickly. You've got to identify your key audience, your emerging, there's three things here. Your key audience, your emerging audience, where is the next audience for you, and then your missed audience. This is the audience that you didn't even know existed that's actually consuming your content and maybe in places that you didn't know about. So you've got to really start to look at your metrics and your analytics in understanding how your content is doing. And then know the platforms that they're going to change, and you just have to be able to put your library in a place so that you can move it when and if those platforms go kaput. So if you think about what happened on Vine and Instagram, there was 2 plays happening. Instagram won that game. If you look at Vidler, and then you look at what happened with Musical.ly, which eventually became TikTok, there's a lot of navigation that's occurring in social in 2020. I think we'll continue to see some of that shake out. There may be some unique acquisitions. I'm not putting any predictions up yet. That's coming soon, though, on what platforms may be looking at. TikTok's definitely going to be a target, though, I think. So listen, if you want great strategy, great results, and some execution tactics for your business, you've got to stop into the website, paulbarrongroup.com, and tell me your story. Tell me what it is that you are trying to do with your business, and we'll definitely be able to help you out. So I want you to stay tuned for our next topic, and that is going to be a product review on what I think is the platform for 2020 to go out and spend some time on. Stay tuned right here. Tired of keynote speakers not delivering? My approach to speaking for your event is built on a very unique process that I've spent the past decade crafting and building. With the power of my social data index, I deliver consumer science and behavior on any imaginable domain. When I speak, I set trends based on a unique set of these insights, all customized to your event. The future of business is not data. It's the science of data interpretation that can uncover the vast potential of your business. Contact me now to speak at your next event. Email me, paul@pbg2.com, or reach me on Twitter @PaulBarron. Welcome back to Breakthrough, and today we're going to be talking about my product review, which is the best new platform for your business in social media today. And of course, obviously you can see up here on screen, TikTok. TikTok is the one that I think has some legs here. And now I know everybody's gonna be killing me in the comments, DM me on Twitter. Just stop the hate right now. It's not telling you that you should put it all on the line with TikTok. What I'm saying is, if you're not there, you need to go ahead and set up an outpost. Let's get things rolling, start observing, and get ready for the long game, because I think TikTok is going to play into the long game. Let's talk about organic reach. We've seen that organic reach has been falling on Instagram in a big way, meaning you've got to pay to play now on Instagram, mainly because Facebook has figured out how to apply that engine of algorithm that makes cash every day over on Instagram. So organic is really starting to fade. That's not happening on TikTok. What we're seeing with TikTok is organic reach is actually on fire. So you've got to really understand first the type of target you're looking demographically. When you look at TikTok, it's under the age of 21 primarily, but it's starting to age up very quickly. And that's something that people are watching, because if it ages up, and when I say ages up, meaning into the 20s, early 20s, late 20s, as a major demographic, then this becomes a very viable platform. Don't forget, though, that the influencers of your customers are probably the children. And when I say the children, meaning the teens and the preteens that are primarily and or using mostly Instagram and platforms like TikTok. So that is definitely happening. I know for me, we've got two very young children, and they control a lot of influence as to what kind of toys we buy, what kind of movies they get to watch, what kind of books. So that influence is coming from somewhere. So for now, that influence is coming for my kids. It's going to be coming from YouTube, YouTube Kids. That's one of the major influence things on their lives today. But as they start to age up and move into content creation or consumption, that starts to change the game. So be watching this very closely, especially as this starts to age up. Engagement average on the top content is highest at 82%. This is where I think TikTok wins big. And what I mean by that is when you look at the other platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, engagement means the percentage in which people are consuming that content to its end. This is where TikTok wins. Obviously, it's short content, it's 15 seconds. But Insta lives over in that game, and they're at 52%. Twitter, 69% of content, mainly because there's not as much video posting on Twitter. And then Facebook, again, another, this is more of a stream feed, a scroll that you get onto Facebook. And then LinkedIn is very high also. And there's another reason for LinkedIn, because it's very business oriented, B2B oriented. And it's a great platform for you if you are in the B2B area and you're not already on there. You should be, which is for another video, but LinkedIn is definitely another dark horse to be watching. The other thing is that you're gonna see that you need to create more content at speed to accelerate organic reach on TikTok. So a lot more clips, a lot more investment in time of being able to put those stories together. That might slow you down for a product like TikTok, but if you're prepared and you've got a content making engine at your disposal, then you probably can keep up with it, because some of these people are spending a ton of time on creating some very innovative and creative content on TikTok. So Organic reach. The other thing is that it's an early platform, and this is kind of an advantage and a non-advantage. And we're going to put that slide up on screen because these are some tighter screenshots here, but I want you to see these. So currently there's no advertising play on TikTok, which means that they thrive off followers who like and comment on that content. That's a big part of how these platforms, and it's a great strategy from a platform owner standpoint, the people that develop TikTok, is they're trying to create that massive influx of users and a huge presence on engagement, which is consumption. Because the minute that you start to create that tactic, which creates habit, then you've started to define and build a brand. That's how Instagram won, and then Instagram, of course, became a $1 billion sale over to Facebook, even though I think they sold too cheap. The other thing that happens here is for companies, B2B companies, or even B2C companies, you're going to have to use things that are more campaign related. So TikTok's has these challenges, and there's been several of them that are very effective, and we'll show you some here, an example being McDonald's on the Big Mac challenge. But the Big Mac, this was actually done in, I think it was Malaysia, and the creative elements that happened inside of the challenge were, I mean, literally could have been put into Hollywood. That's how great they were by these basically artists that have started to develop and become, somewhat insta-famous over on TikTok. The other thing is by disabling advertising pop-ups and monetizing, this is really going to make the user's experience a lot more immersive, and it's really going to win over a lot of people in terms of consumption. And remember, the youth are trying to avoid the advertising in a massive way. So this is a platform that gets them to solving that problem, where Instagram is actually going the other direction, which is starting to camp out on more ads and more paid reach. So I do believe we're going to start to see some movement there. So TikTok, as an early platform, there are some advantages on it. I do think these advantages can play into your business. The key here is going to be what you're doing as a business owner or as a strategy. Maybe you're a brand leader and you're developing a strategy for your brand. Maybe it is a B2C brand, whether you're a sneaker company or a wine company. It doesn't really matter. The key is understanding how do you take it to that next level. Obviously, in the fact that you can't market within it and there's no advertising vehicle there yet, it means everything is brand. So this is really going to start to bring you back to the roots of what could be, and I talk about this often, is that in the next 2 to 5 years, we could see advertising completely just off the map. And all we'll see is brand in these platforms and moving forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how TikTok starts to evolve. If you have not had a chance to follow us on Breakthrough, we like to put this stuff up over on the website so you can get it in its entirety. We also do a ton of this right here on YouTube. You'll find several videos based and tie to each other on these topics. So make sure and consume them all. Give us some likes and also some comments on what you think we should be talking about next, or maybe there's something you'd love to see right here on Breakthrough. We also do interviews on Breakthrough. We will bring people in studio and we talk to them about their strategy, whether it's digital strategy, product innovation strategy. Maybe you have a founder or a creator that you think should be here. Let us know. Just reach out to me. You can do it at paul@pbg2.com. We will catch you soon right back here on Breakthrough.